At my son's engagement party, my son stood up and introduced me to his boss. This is my father, the freeloader who has never contributed anything to my life. 80 people turned to stare at me. They looked at me smiling, waiting for me to defend myself. But I remained silent, because in my hands was clear evidence of his deceit, and his boss would surely know who I really am. Thank you for staying until this moment. Answer honestly, if someone you love is planning to destroy you, would you confront them publicly or stay silent and let their actions expose everything that is the harsh choice in this story? Note: this is a fictional story. The crystal chandeliers at the Sentinel Hotel cast warm light across the ballroom, but I felt cold as my son Tyler dragged me toward his boss. I'd arrived alone that Saturday evening in late September, parking my aging Camry between sleek Teslas and Mercedes in the underground garage. The elevator ride up had been silent, except for the soft jazz piped through hidden speakers. When the doors opened to the grand ballroom, I'd hesitated at the threshold. The space was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed downtown Portland, where rain streaked the glass in silvery lines against the city lights. Inside, everything gleamed: polished marble floors, white linens on cocktail tables, those magnificent chandeliers dripping light like frozen waterfalls. About 80 people mingled in expensive suits and designer dresses, their laughter floating above the string quartet in the corner. I smoothed down my navy suit, the good one I'd bought 10 years ago for client meetings. It was clean and pressed, but standing here among this wealth, I felt like a house sparrow at a peacock convention. Across the room, I spotted Tyler first. He stood near the bar with Nicole Harper, his fiancée. She was striking in a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Her blonde hair was swept up diamond earrings catching the light. Tyler wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, custom-tailored, no doubt. He was laughing, one hand on Nicole's waist, the other gesturing as he told some story to the cluster of people around them. My daughter Stephanie stood nearby with her husband Scott. At 34, she'd inherited her mother's elegant features, though her expression tonight was harder than Helen's had ever been. Her emerald dress screamed expensive, and she held a champagne flute like it was a prop. Scott, a lawyer, had the polished look of someone who'd grown up with money, confident posture, easy smile, gold cufflinks winking at his wrists. I stayed near the entrance, hoping I could fulfill my obligation without drawing much attention. Just show up, congratulate Tyler, maybe share one drink, then slip out. That had been my plan. Then Tyler saw me. His eyes lit up not with warmth, but with something I couldn't quite name, something that made my stomach tighten. He said something to Nicole, who glanced my way and nodded. Then he was moving toward me with that wide smile he used for clients, and I knew somehow that I'd made a mistake coming here. "Dad." His voice cut through the conversational hum loud enough to turn heads. He grabbed my elbow grip tighter than necessary. "There you are. Come on, I want you to meet some people." Before I could respond, he was pulling me across the room. I caught glimpses of curious faces, heard the music swell and fade as we passed the quartet. We stopped in front of a group of executives I didn't recognize except for one. Douglas Freeman stood at the center, a silver-haired man in his late 50s, wearing an impeccable navy suit that made mine look like a bargain rack special. He had sharp, observant eyes, and the kind of presence that made people listen when he spoke. I'd seen him briefly at the party's start, but we hadn't been introduced. "Everyone," Tyler announced, his voice projecting across the circle, "this is my father, James Caldwell." He paused and his smile widened. "The freeloader." The words hit like a slap. Silence rippled outward from our group. The executives' faces froze mid-conversation. Someone's champagne glass stopped halfway to their lips. Even the string quartet seemed to falter for a beat. Heat rushed to my face. I stood there, Tyler's hand still gripping my elbow, staring at the marble floor, because I couldn't look at their faces. Always living off others' success, Stephanie's voice added from somewhere behind me. I turned to see her, and Scott had followed us over. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold. That's Dad. A few people gave awkward, uncertain laughs. Most just looked uncomfortable, their gazes sliding away from mine like I was something embarrassing they'd rather not acknowledge. But Douglas Freeman didn't laugh. He studied me with an intensity that made me want to shrink into myself. His eyes moved from my face to Tyler's, then back again. Something flickered in his expression, too quick for me to read, but it made my chest tighten even more. "Mr. Caldwell," Douglas said finally, his voice measured and cool. He didn't extend his hand. Instead, he looked at Tyler with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Interesting. Then he turned back to me, and his next words came out quiet but absolutely clear. "My office, Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp." No one seemed to know what to say. Tyler's grin faltered slightly. The executives shifted, suddenly very interested in their drinks. Stephanie frowned. I mumbled something about having a headache, which wasn't a lie anymore, and made my excuses. No one tried to stop me. I walked back across that gleaming ballroom, feeling 80 pairs of eyes on my back, hearing the conversations resume in lowered voices behind me. The rain hit me the moment I stepped outside. Cold October Portland rain that soaked through my suit jacket before I reached my car. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, shook as I started the engine, shook as I gripped the steering wheel and pulled out of that underground garage. The drive home was a blur of red taillights and windshield wipers beating a rhythm I couldn't follow. My small house in northeast Portland had never looked so welcoming or so empty. It was a modest craftsman with a sagging porch and paint that needed touching up, nothing like the modern condos Tyler and Stephanie lived in. I didn't turn on the lights when I went inside, just walked straight to the kitchen and sat down at the small table in the dark. Helen's photograph hung on the wall across from me, the one taken at Cannon Beach 5 years ago. She was smiling in that picture, wind catching her gray hair, the ocean behind her. God, I missed her. 18 months she'd been gone, and some days the absence still felt fresh as a wound. In the kitchen, I sat in the darkness and stared at Helen's photograph on the wall. She'd been gone 18 months, and I'd kept my promise to her. I'd helped Tyler one more time, just like she'd asked on her deathbed. And tonight, he'd repaid me with public humiliation in front of 80 people who mattered to his career. What I didn't know yet was that Douglas Freeman had recognized my name, and he remembered exactly what I'd done for him 15 years ago. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Helen's face, not from the party, but from 18 months ago in that hospital room where she'd made me promise something I should have refused. Sunday morning light crept through my curtains, gray and weak. I'd been awake since 3 a.m. while rain drummed against the roof. My mind kept circling back to the moment that had set everything in motion. March 2024, Providence Hospital, 4th floor. I could still smell that room antiseptic mixed with dying lilies on the windowsill. Helen had been there 2 weeks. Ovarian cancer stage 4 diagnosis, 6 months too late. The doctors stopped pretending after week 3. I'd moved a recliner next to her bed, sleeping in fits while machines beeped. Morphine softened the edges, but didn't cloud her mind completely. It was a Tuesday afternoon when she asked. Weak sunlight filtered through blinds, casting stripes across her hospital gown. She'd lost so much weight, her wedding ring kept sliding. I'd been reading to her when her hand squeezed mine. "James." Her voice was paper thin. "Promise me something." I set the book down. "Anything," a rattling breath. Tyler's getting engaged. Help him with whatever he needs. My heart sank. Helen, I know. She cut me off, reading my hesitation after 43 years of marriage. I know he doesn't appreciate it, but I need to believe marriage will change him. That Nicole starting a family, maybe that's what he needs to grow up. I wanted to tell her the truth, that Tyler at 38 was who he was going to be, that neither he nor Stephanie had visited more than twice since her diagnosis. But how do you tell your dying wife her children are disappointments? Just one more time, Helen whispered. Let me believe something good can still come from this family. The machines beeped steadily. Down the hall, someone laughed, jarringly normal in this place of endings. She wasn't asking for much, just hope, just comfort. Okay, I said quietly. I'll help him. Relief flooded her face. Thank you, love. 3 weeks later, she was gone. Tyler called once during those final weeks, said he'd visit, but work was crazy. He never came. Stephanie showed up twice once with a plant once to complain about parking. Each visit under 20 minutes. Helen never said anything, but I'd catch her looking at the door, hope flickering when footsteps passed. That hope would dim when they continued past. I was alone at the end. 3 a.m. mid-March. The alarm sequence started that urgent beeping. By the time nurses arrived, Helen was gone, her hand still warm in mine. Tyler and Stephanie made it to the funeral. They cried, accepted condolences, stood beside me while rain fell on her casket. Then they went back to their lives. Now, 18 months later, I understood what Helen had really asked. Not for me to help Tyler, but for permission to die believing her children might turn out okay. A final gift, the illusion her legacy wasn't built on sand, and I'd given it. Made a promise I couldn't break. Rain hammered the windows. I sat up, reached for water. My phone sat dark beside it. No calls, no messages. I thought about Douglas Freeman's words. My office, Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. He'd recognized my name, but from where I'd worked with dozens of companies over the years, restructured balance sheets, pulled businesses back from bankruptcy. Most clients never knew my name, just the consultant who fixed problems and disappeared. But Douglas had known. Something in his eyes when Tyler introduced me right before calling me a freeloader. I picked up Helen's photograph. 20th anniversary at Cannon Beach, wind-blown hair, genuine smile, the Pacific behind her. 56. Healthy. No idea cancer was already growing. I kept my promise, I said to the photograph. I helped him, Helen. The photo didn't answer. The house stayed silent except for rain. But beneath exhaustion and hurt, something stirred. Not anger, not yet. More like awareness. Like standing in fog and suddenly seeing shapes you'd walked past blind. I'd spent 43 years building a practice on one principle: see truth in the numbers. Follow the money. Trust evidence, not what people want you to believe. And I'd failed to apply it to my own family. Tyler hadn't needed help because he was busy. He'd needed it because he'd created chaos and wanted someone else to fix it quietly while he took credit. That's what he'd always done. What I'd always let him do because Helen asked me to believe the best. But Helen was gone. And the promise I'd made had just cost me my dignity in front of 80 strangers. I set the photograph back and stood. My body ached. My crumpled suit lay on the floor. Monday was 36 hours away. I didn't know what Douglas wanted, but I'd find out. I didn't know what I'd do about Tyler and Stephanie, but something would change. Helen had asked me to help one more time, and I had. But she'd never asked me to keep helping forever. Rain continued as dawn broke over Portland. I stood in my bedroom and felt something shift inside my chest, like a door opening after years locked. When my phone rang again, I'd answer. But the man who answered wouldn't be the same man who'd said yes in that hospital room. It started with a phone call I should have ignored. "Dad, I need a small favor." Tyler's voice came through my cell on a Tuesday afternoon in June, 3 months before everything fell apart. I was in my home office reviewing client projections. Portland sunlight streamed through the window for the first time in 2 weeks. "What kind of favor?" I asked, already regretting the question. "Just a quick look at some vendor contracts for the engagement party. Nicole has very specific vision, and I'm swamped at work. You're the expert." "You're the expert." Translation: "This is boring, and I don't want to deal with it." I thought of Helen's hand in mine, her whisper in that hospital room. "One more time, James. Help him one more time." "Email them to me," I said. The line went dead. No goodbye, no "how are you doing?" Just the assumption that I'd drop everything. The email arrived 4 minutes later. Subject: "Party contracts urgent." 7 attachments. No message. Not even a please. I opened the first file, the venue agreement for the Sentinel Hotel's grand ballroom. It looked professional at first, elegant letterhead, proper legal language, standard terms. 150 guests. September 21st, $18,000. Then I got to page 7. Section 12.4, Delivery and Timing Penalties. Should the client fail to meet agreed-upon delivery schedules, or should any client-contracted vendors cause delays impacting hotel operations, the client shall be liable for liquidated damages in the amount of $40,000, $40,000 per incident. I read it 3 times. $40,000 per incident. Tyler had already signed it, and his signature was right there on page 14, dated 3 weeks ago. I pulled up Appendix C. The access windows were absurdly narrow photographer setup between 8 o'clock and 9:30 a.m. Band equipment between 10 o'clock and 11:15 a.m. Any delay beyond those 90-minute windows would trigger the penalty. This wasn't a standard event contract. This was a legal trap. I spent 3 nights on the phone with the hotel's events coordinator, a woman named Patricia, who insisted the clause was industry standard. "Patricia, I've reviewed commercial contracts for 43 years. I told her, keeping my voice level. This penalty clause wouldn't survive a reasonableness test in Oregon courts. The amount bears no relation to actual damages. I'm not trying to create problems, I'm trying to help both parties avoid a lawsuit." Silence. Then, "I'll speak with our legal department." On the 3rd night, she called back. The penalty clause would be removed entirely. The timing windows would be expanded to 2 hours. The catering terms would be rewritten. I emailed Tyler a summary of the changes I'd negotiated, 2 paragraphs explaining what I'd fixed and why it mattered. His response came 6 hours later: "Thanks." 1 word. No questions about the problem. No curiosity about his exposure. No acknowledgement that I'd potentially saved him $40,000. Just thanks. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd kept my promise to Helen. Then 2 weeks before the party, my inbox exploded. The first email came from the photographer, subject: "Urgent deposit payment required." "Dear Mr. Caldwell, I'm reaching out because I've been unable to reach Tyler. As specified in our contract, the $12,500 deposit was due August 21st. It is now September 7th, and we have not received payment. If the deposit is not received by September 9th, we will release your date. Please contact me as soon as possible." My hands shook as I opened the next email from the band's booking agent. Same story. $8,500. Same deadline. Same threat to cancel. $21,000. Tyler hadn't paid $21,000 in deposits. I called his cell, voicemail. I tried his office. His assistant said he was in meetings all day. I sent an email marked urgent. No response. I called Stephanie. She didn't pick up. The sun was setting outside my window, turning the Willamette River gold and orange. Helen and I had chosen this house 32 years ago, partly for this view. I opened my banking app and navigated to my retirement account. The account I'd been building since I was 25. The account that was supposed to carry me through the years after Helen. Current balance $287,456.73. $21,000 would barely make a dent. I could transfer it tonight. The vendors would have their deposits by morning. Tyler's party would go forward. Nicole would have her perfect day. My cursor hovered over transfer funds. One more time, James. Maybe it will make the difference. I stared at the screen. The venue was non-refundable, $18,000 already paid. Without the photographer and band, the party would collapse. Tyler would be humiliated in front of Nicole's wealthy family. Her father was a hedge fund manager. Her mother sat on charity boards. A failed engagement party would confirm every doubt they had about him. And I'd be the father who refused to help. Tyler and Stephanie would never forgive me. I clicked transfer funds. The confirmation screen appeared: transfer $21,000 from retirement account to checking account. This action cannot be undone. Outside, the last light was fading from the river. In 2 weeks, Tyler's party would begin at the Sentinel Hotel with crystal chandeliers and 80 guests, and a son who'd said nothing more than thanks. I thought about Helen's face in that hospital room, the hope in her eyes, the certainty that love could change things. I pressed, confirm. I'll have it back to you by Friday, Dad. You're a lifesaver. Tyler's text came through Thursday afternoon, 30 minutes after the payments had gone out. I stared at that message on my phone. By Friday. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours away. Okay, I said to my empty kitchen. Friday. Friday arrived. I checked my account that morning. Nothing. Checked at lunch. Still nothing. By 5 p.m. I texted, "Hey Tyler, just checking in about today." His reply came 6 hours later. "Crazy day at work, Dad. We'll get it to you Monday for sure." Monday. Not sorry, not acknowledgement, just postponement and the word sure. Monday passed, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, 1 week after his original promise, I texted, "Tyler, I do need that repayment soon. I'm covering some expenses temporarily." Response came faster but shorter. "I know, sorry, next week." Next week. The deadline kept sliding further away. The second Friday came and went. No money, no message. I called his cell that evening. 4 rings, voicemail. His recorded voice. "Hey, this is Tyler. Leave a message." I didn't. What would I say? Sunday morning I tried again. Voicemail again. Monday I texted Stephanie, "Hey, I've been trying to reach Tyler about something time-sensitive. Do you know if everything's okay?" 90 minutes later, "He's fine, just really busy with engagement party stuff. I'll tell him you called, exclamation points, cheerful dismissal." Tyler never called back. The third Friday arrived 3 weeks after his original promise. I'd stopped checking my account, stopped expecting. The hope had drained away slowly, like water from a cracked basin. That evening, I sat in my home office and did something I couldn't explain. I opened a new folder on my computer, Tyler, engagement party. I saved his text messages. By Friday. Monday for sure. Next week. I saved my gentle reminders. Stephanie's deflection. I saved the bank statement showing the transfer date. Printed everything. Put it in a manila folder. Filed it behind client documents. 43 years of consulting had taught me to keep records. Document promises. Trust paper trails more than verbal assurances. I told myself this was just habit. But late at night, sitting alone with just the desk lamp on, I'd pull up my retirement account balance and stare at the number. $266,456.73. It should have been $287,456.73. That gap represented something more than money, more than broken promises, evidence of something I'd been refusing to see for years. August crawled by. 6 weeks, 7, 8. I kept working, kept rebuilding that retirement balance dollar by dollar through client payments, but the account stayed depleted, and Tyler stayed silent. Late August, 3 weeks before the party, Tyler posted in the family group chat, "Everything is coming together perfectly. Can't wait for you all to see what Nicole and I have planned." I read that message sitting at my kitchen table, read it 3 times. What Nicole and I have planned. Not thanks to everyone who helped. Not grateful for support. Just Tyler and Nicole, as if the party had materialized through their will alone. As if $21,000 hadn't vanished. As if contracts I'd renegotiated didn't exist. As if 3 weeks of broken promises were nothing. Stephanie replied immediately, "So excited, you two are amazing." I set my phone down and returned to a client's financial statements. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't rewrite history. Numbers just are clear, honest, indifferent to narrative. That's what I'd always loved about my job. The clarity. September arrived. Party invitations came with dress codes and parking details. Tyler signed them, "Can't wait to celebrate with you all, Tyler and Nicole." I looked at that invitation for a long time. I could not go. Make up a client emergency. Say I wasn't feeling well, but Helen's voice was in my head. Help him one more time. I'd made a promise to a dying woman. Despite everything, despite the money, the silence being erased from my son's version, I couldn't break my word to her. Saturday evening, September 21st, I put on the charcoal gray suit Helen had picked out. I drove through light rain to the Sentinel Hotel. I walked through those glass doors. The ballroom was filling when I arrived. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, gold-rimmed china. The photographer I'd saved was capturing moments. The band I'd paid for was setting up. Every detail perfect. I stood near the back, watching. Nicole's family arrived, hedge fund manager, father, charity board, mother. They greeted Tyler with warm embraces. They surveyed the ballroom with approving nods. "This is lovely, Tyler," Nicole's mother said. "You've done a wonderful job." "Thanks, Patricia," Tyler replied smoothly. Nicole had such a clear vision. I wanted every detail perfect for her. Every detail. Guests complimented the ambiance, the music, the flowers. Tyler accepted it all with gracious smiles, as if he'd personally overseen every crisis, solved every problem, made every sacrifice. I thought about the $21,000. 3 Fridays that had come and gone. Text messages that had grown shorter and colder until they stopped. The folder in my filing cabinet with evidence of promises made and broken. Then Tyler saw me across the room. Our eyes met. For just a second, something flickered across his face. Not warmth, not gratitude, not even embarrassment at the money he owed, the calls he'd ignored, the promises he'd shattered. Something else. Something that made my stomach drop. Something calculated. He started walking toward me, Nicole on his arm, her parents following close. His expression was shifting, arranging itself into something I couldn't quite read yet, but knew with the same certainty I felt. When numbers on a balance sheet didn't add up, wasn't going to be anything good. And I stood there in the ballroom I'd saved, watching my son approach with that look on his face, and realized that whatever was about to happen would teach me exactly how little my 43 years of sacrifice had meant to the people I'd sacrificed for. Tuesday arrived unannounced, the way the biggest truths in my life always seemed to. The black Mercedes S-Class pulled up outside my 2-story Pearl District office building at 9 in the morning. Through my window, I watched Douglas Freeman step out carrying a worn brown leather portfolio. The sight of that portfolio made my heart rate quicken. I recognized it immediately, though it had been 15 years since I'd last seen it. Douglas didn't need an appointment. After what happened Saturday night, after my son stood in the middle of a ballroom full of 80 people and called me a freeloader who'd contributed nothing to his engagement party, I suppose Douglas figured the normal rules no longer applied. I met him at the door. My assistant hadn't arrived yet, which was probably for the best. The Pearl District office wasn't much 2 rooms, a modest reception area, a conference table, filing cabinets that held 43 years of meticulously organized client records. But it was mine, built from nothing, maintained through integrity. Douglas looked exactly as I remembered from Saturday night, though this morning the careful neutrality he'd worn at the party was gone. His expression was grave, purposeful. "Mr. Caldwell," he said, "I apologize for coming unannounced." "James," I corrected, stepping aside to let him in. "And you don't need to apologize. Come in." We settled at the small conference table. Douglas placed the leather portfolio between us with the reverence of someone handling something sacred. For a long moment, he simply looked at it, one hand resting on the aged leather. "I've been carrying this in my car since Saturday night," he said quietly, "debating whether to bring it to you. This morning I decided you needed to see it." He opened the portfolio. Inside, nestled against the faded silk lining, was a document I hadn't seen in 15 years. The paper had yellowed slightly at the edges, but the text was still crisp, still clear. At the top of the first page, in the header I'd designed when I was 27 years old, and foolishly optimistic about the consulting business I was trying to build, Financial Restructuring Analysis, Freeman Logistics Corporation. Prepared by James Caldwell, Financial Consulting. Date: March 2009. My name, my work, my formatting. Back when I'd spent hours agonizing over whether Arial or Times New Roman looked more professional. "I've kept this for 15 years, Douglas said. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something like reverence or perhaps debt. "My father gave it to me 3 weeks before he died. He said, 'Keep this. Remember what integrity looks like.'" I stared at the document. Memories flooded back, late nights, endless phone calls, the weight of knowing a company's survival rested on whether I could find a solution no one else had seen. "Saturday night," he interrupted gently. "I sat at a table and watched your son accept praise for a party that, according to the whispers I was hearing, you'd actually saved. I watched him stand up and give a toast about how he and Nicole had planned everything ourselves. And then I watched him look directly at you and say you were a freeloader who contributed nothing." The words landed like physical blows. I'd been trying not to think about that moment, trying not to replay Tyler's voice, the cruel satisfaction in his eyes. 80 people heard it," Douglas continued. 80 people watched you sit there and take it. And I thought the man who saved my family 15 years ago doesn't deserve this. The man my father called the most honest person I've ever met doesn't deserve to be humiliated by his own son." He tapped the document. "This represents something, James. It represents a time when you had nothing, no reputation, no client base, just competence and character. Freeman Logistics was drowning. My father had just died. I was 29 years old, terrified, and completely out of my depth. And you," he paused, "you didn't just save the company. You refused payment. Do you remember that I did? I remembered Douglas Young and desperate trying to write me a check. I remembered saying, "You're facing a crisis. I'm just getting started. Keep your money. Rebuild your company." Saturday night, when your son said what he said, something clicked in my mind. Douglas's expression hardened. The man who saved my family when he had every reason not to when taking payment would have jump-started his entire career. That man was being destroyed by his own son. And I realized I owed you the truth. The truth about what? About Tyler. Douglas closed the portfolio but kept his hand on it. Sunday morning, I made a decision. Tyler Caldwell works for Freeman Logistics. He's been my marketing manager for logistics integration for 6 years. And Sunday morning, I decided to investigate him not as your son, but as my employee. The room seemed to tilt slightly. I didn't know what I'd find, Douglas said quietly. I hoped I'd find nothing. I hoped your son was just thoughtless, careless, maybe cruel in the moment, but fundamentally decent. He paused. I was wrong. Douglas, let me tell you what you did for us in 2009. His voice was firm now, almost commanding. Let me tell you the whole story, the crisis, the work you did, the people you saved. And then let me tell you why, after hearing your son call you a freeloader Saturday night, I spent 10 months investigating him. He opened the portfolio again, revealing not just the 2009 document, but 3 new folders beneath it. Each one was thicker than the last. What you did for Freeman Logistics 15 years ago was extraordinary, Douglas said. What your son has done to that legacy and what he planned to do to you is criminal. The word hung in the air between us. Criminal. I need you to understand something before we go further, Douglas said, meeting my eyes. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about Saturday night. This is about accountability. This is about a man who saved my family being protected from the person trying to destroy him. He slid the first folder toward me. Let me tell you what you did for us, he said quietly. And then let me show you what I found. Douglas leaned back in his chair, his hand still resting on the 2009 document. The morning light from my Pearl District office window cast long shadows across the conference table. February 2009, he began. My father, Robert Freeman, died of a heart attack on the 15th. He was 63 years old. I got the call at 2 in the morning. By sunrise, I was sitting in his office at Freeman Logistics, staring at files I didn't understand, and phone messages from creditors I couldn't pay. I remembered that call. A young man's voice shaking with grief and panic. Mr. Caldwell, my father said if anything ever happened to him, I should call you first. The company was drowning, Douglas continued. $2 million in debt. 60 days, that's all we had, before Chapter 11 bankruptcy became inevitable. Equipment leases we couldn't afford. Supplier contracts that were bleeding us dry. Payroll we could barely make. And I had no idea how to fix any of it. He pulled out a single sheet from beneath the 2009 report, a handwritten note on Freeman Logistics letterhead, the ink slightly faded but still legible. If anything happens to me, call James Caldwell. He'll tell you the truth, even when I don't want to hear it. RF. I found this in my father's desk drawer, Douglas said quietly. Dated 6 months before he died. He knew the company was in trouble. He just didn't live long enough to fix it. I looked at Robert Freeman's handwriting. The memory was sharp now, meeting Robert at a small business conference in 2008, talking about financial restructuring over terrible hotel coffee exchanging business cards. You were 27, Douglas said. You just started your consulting practice. You had maybe 3 clients. When I called you, I expected you to say you were too busy, or that the job was too big, or that your fee would be something I couldn't afford. I remember what you said instead. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Don't sign anything until I see the full picture. I'd driven to their office in Beaverton at 6 a.m. carrying a legal pad and a calculator. The Freeman Logistics building had been small, then just a warehouse with a cramped office attached 18 employees who didn't know if they'd have jobs next month. You spent 6 weeks living in our crisis, Douglas said. I watched you arrive every morning at 6 and leave after midnight. You went through every contract, every expense report, every supplier agreement. You called our creditors personally, all 18 of them, and you didn't just negotiate. You explained our situation like you were telling them a story. You made them believe we could survive. The memories came back in fragments. Late nights with spreadsheets that didn't balance. Phone calls with suppliers who had every right to refuse but somehow didn't. Finding $700,000 in recoverable costs, buried in duplicated software licenses, auto-renewing contracts. Nobody had canceled insurance on equipment the company no longer owned. You found money we didn't know we had, Douglas said. $90,000 in unpaid receivables from clients who'd simply forgotten to pay. $700,000 in expenses we could eliminate or renegotiate. You restructured our debt, convinced 3 major suppliers to convert receivables into equity stakes, and negotiated payment plans with everyone else. I remembered the breakthrough moment, realizing that Freeman Logistics wasn't actually failing. It was just badly managed, overly complicated, and drowning in inefficiencies that could be fixed. You called 18 creditors. Douglas continued, his voice thick with something like awe. You spent hours on the phone with each one. You showed them the analysis, walked them through the numbers, convinced them that 60 more days would make the difference between recovery and total loss. And they believed you. Every single one of them. They believed the numbers. I corrected quietly. Not me. No, Douglas said firmly. They believed you. Because when I tried to pay you, when I finally had cash flow and wanted to write you a check for $20,000, maybe $30,000, you refused. I remembered that conversation. Douglas, barely 30 years old, insisting he owed me. Me explaining that he didn't. You said, you're facing a crisis. I'm just getting started. Keep your money, rebuild your company. If you remember me when things are stable, send me a referral. Douglas smiled slightly. You charged me $4,000, travel expenses and materials. That's it. 6 weeks of work that saved a $2 million company, and you billed me for gas money and printer paper. It was the right thing to do. It was extraordinary, Douglas corrected. And my father never forgot it. For the next 6 years until he died, he told that story to anyone who'd listen. James Caldwell saved us when we had nothing to offer him in return. That's integrity. He gestured to the office around us, the modest space, the careful organization, the absence of any luxury. Freeman Logistics today, $53 million in annual revenue, 240 employees across 3 states, 12 consecutive years of profitability. We've acquired 4 smaller companies, expanded into new markets, built something my father would be proud of. Douglas's expression hardened. Sunday morning, the day after your son humiliated you in front of 80 people, I sat in my office and thought about what you'd done for us. I thought about my father's note. I thought about integrity. He pulled out 3 thick folders, each one bound with metal clips, each one bulging with documents. And I decided Tyler Caldwell needed to be investigated not as your son, but as my employee. I brought in forensic accountants, IT security. I spent 10 months building a case because I needed to be absolutely certain. Douglas met my eyes. The investigation is complete. What I found... He paused, choosing his words carefully. What your son has done isn't just cruel, James. It isn't just betrayal. He slid the 3 folders toward me. It's criminal. Douglas placed his hand on the first folder. The label read, Folder 1, Trevor Wade, Commission Theft. 3 folders, he said quietly. Each one worse than the last. He opened the first folder and spread the contents across my conference table. A contract printed on heavy stock paper with the Freeman Logistics logo embossed at the top. Client Pacific Retail Distribution. Contract value $2,300,000. Duration 3 years. Beneath the contract was a personnel file, Trevor Wade, Senior Analyst, age 26. A photograph showed a young man with dark-rimmed glasses and an earnest expression. Trevor joined us 4 years ago, Douglas said. Brilliant analyst. Quiet. The kind of employee who shows up early, stays late, does exceptional work, and never asks for recognition. He pulled out a thick document, 47 pages, single-spaced. The cover page read, Pacific Retail Distribution, Logistics Integration Proposal, prepared by Trevor Wade. Trevor spent 3 months on this proposal, Douglas continued. Market analysis, cost projections, logistics modeling, implementation timelines. He built spreadsheets that mapped out every variable. He created mock-ups of the client's supply chain with optimization overlays. It was the most comprehensive proposal we'd ever produced. Douglas slid an email thread toward me. The first message was from Tyler to Trevor. Trevor, excellent work on the Pacific proposal. Let's keep this between us for now. I'll handle the client presentation. Don't mention your involvement to anyone yet. We want to surprise them with the full team reveal later. Tyler. Trevor's response was simple, understood. Happy to help. Tyler presented the proposal to Pacific Retail himself. Douglas said, his voice flat. He walked them through Trevor's analysis as if he'd created it. He answered their questions using Trevor's research. When they signed the contract for $2.3 million, Tyler's name was listed as the primary account manager. He pulled out another document, a commission statement. Tyler Caldwell, $47,000. Company policy, Douglas explained. Primary account managers on contracts over $2 million receive a 2% commission. Tyler received $47,000 for work Trevor had done. Did Trevor ever get credit? Trevor got a standard annual bonus, $3,000. Douglas's jaw tightened. 6 months later, when Trevor asked to be included in the Pacific account management meetings, Tyler removed him from the project. Told him the client wanted senior leadership only. Trevor quit 2 months after that. He's working for a competitor now. I stared at the documents. My son had stolen another man's work, claimed it as his own, pocketed $47,000, and then pushed the actual creator out of the project entirely. Douglas closed folder 1 and opened folder 2. The label read, Expense Fraud, 4-year Analysis. This one took longer to piece together, Douglas said, pulling out page after page of credit card statements, receipts, and cross-referenced calendars. Our internal audit started 10 months ago, right after your son's engagement party. What we found was a systematic pattern of personal expenses being classified as business costs. He spread the evidence across the table. Vegas, March 2021. Tyler submitted expense reports for a client development conference. Hotel Bellagio 4 nights. Dinners 3 high-end steakhouses. Total $8,200. Douglas tapped a surveillance photo. Tyler at a blackjack table alone. No conference, no clients, just Tyler gambling on the company dime. Miami, October 2021. Another industry conference. Resort hotel $6,000. Spa treatments $1,200. Car rental upgrade to a Mercedes convertible $900. Douglas pulled out another photo, Tyler lounging by a pool with a woman who wasn't Nicole. The conference he claimed to attend didn't exist. We checked. Portland business lunches. Tyler submitted 43 expense reports over 2 years for client meals at expensive restaurants Le Pigeon Canard Beast. Total $19,000. Douglas showed me the credit card cross-reference. Problem 34 of those lunches occurred on weekends, and when we checked his calendar, he had no client meetings scheduled on any of those dates. Page after page. Rental cars he'd upgraded without authorization. Hotel rooms he'd charged to the company card for personal trips. Shopping expenses at high-end stores submitted as client gifts, with no documentation of who received them. 4 years, Douglas said. $145,000 in fraudulent expenses. I felt sick. Douglas closed folder 2. His hand moved to folder 3, the thickest of all. The label, Shell Companies and Fake Vendors. This is where it gets truly criminal, Douglas said quietly. He opened the folder. Inside were incorporation documents, invoices, wire transfer records, and a forensic accountant's report running over 60 pages. Our forensic team identified 12 fake vendors over a 3-year period, Douglas explained. Companies with legitimate-sounding names: Summit Business Consulting, Cascade Marketing Solutions, Pacific Northwest IT Services. He showed me the invoices. Each one was professionally formatted, detailing services like marketing consultation, IT infrastructure assessment, logistics training seminars. The amounts ranged from $3,000 to $8,000. Total paid to these vendors, $62,000. Douglas pulled out business registration documents. Every single company was incorporated using P.O. boxes. No physical offices, no websites, no employees besides the registered agent. He showed me bank records with account numbers highlighted. 3 of the 12 shell companies had bank accounts that wire transfers were sent to directly. When we subpoenaed the bank records, we found those accounts were opened by Tyler. The money went straight to accounts he controlled. Douglas spread all 3 folders across the table: the stolen commission, the expense fraud, the fake vendors. 47,000 in stolen commissions, 145,000 in fraudulent expenses, 62,000 through shell companies. He looked at me. $254,000, James. Your son embezzled $250,000 from my company over 4 years. The room felt airless. But that's not the worst part. Douglas's expression darkened. The worst part is what he planned to do to you, and I found it on our own company email server. He pulled out his laptop. Tyler was stupid enough to use his work email for this. Douglas turned his laptop toward me. The screen glowed with the Freeman Logistics email interface inbox filtered to show messages between Tyler Caldwell, Stephanie Whitman, and several other addresses I didn't recognize. Tyler used his work email for all of this, Douglas said quietly. Our IT security protocols archive everything. When I authorized the forensic investigation, we pulled every email Tyler sent or received in the past 18 months. He clicked on the first message. The subject line read, "Dad's House." From Tyler Caldwell to Stephanie Whitman. Date September 24th, 3 weeks after the engagement party. Subject, Dad's house. Steph got the appraisal back. House came in at $450,000. I checked his retirement accounts through the broker statement he left on his desk. Last time we visited, around $287,000 across 3 accounts. Total liquid assets, $737,000. Nicole is pushing hard for the wedding to happen by June. She wants the full package venue, catering, honeymoon in Europe. We're looking at $120,000 minimum. We need liquidity fast. Can you start looking into the guardianship process? Let me know timeline. 2. I stared at the screen. My son had appraised my house. had gone through my financial documents, had calculated my worth down to the dollar, not out of concern, but as assets to be liquidated. "Keep reading," Douglas said quietly. He clicked to the next email. From Stephanie Whitman to Tyler Caldwell. Date September 26th. Subject D.A.D's house, facilities research. Tyler attached our brochures for 3 memory care facilities in the Portland area. I'm focusing on places with specialized programs for challenging behaviors. Translation: they'll keep him there once he's admitted, even if he protests. Evergreen memory care $800, $200 per month. Locked units 24-hour supervision. Riverbend Senior Living $700, $800 per month. Similar setup Cascade Elder Care. $800, $500 per month, more upscale. I'm drafting the guardianship petition now. Scott says we can file in 8 to 10 weeks if we have proper documentation. We need medical records showing cognitive decline. Timeline looks doable. Let me know about the doctor situation. My hands were shaking. I read the email again, trying to process what I was seeing. Memory care facilities, locked units, guardianship petitions. They were planning to have me committed. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Keep reading." Douglas repeated, his tone grim. The next email was longer, more detailed. Tyler had copied both Stephanie and someone named Scott Whitman, a name I didn't recognize. From Tyler Caldwell to Stephanie Whitman, Scott Whitman. Date October 2nd. Subject: timeline and steps, Steph and Scott. Here's the full plan. We need to move systematically. 1. Document incidents of Dad's declining cognition. We create these forgotten appointments, confusion about dates, anything we can manufacture. 2. Get him to sign a power of attorney while he's confused about what he's signing. 3. File emergency guardianship petition with the court. Scott handles this. 4. Move Dad to memory care temporarily for his own safety. 5. Sell the house immediately before he can legally object. $450,000. 6. Transfer retirement accounts to guardianship control. $287,000. 7. Nicole and I get married. Use funds for wedding and down payment on our house. 8. Pay off my Freeman Logistics loan situation. $25,000 I borrowed from the company. Long story. 9. Keep Dad in the facility long enough that any legal challenge becomes moot. 6 to 8 months, minimum. 10. Split remaining assets 3 ways. Me, Stephanie, Scott. 15% legal fee. Scott, can you draft the POA documents? Make them look routine, something he'd sign without thinking twice. Maybe frame it as estate planning, or just updating paperwork. Timeline. If we start now, we can have him in a facility by Thanksgiving. House sold by Christmas. Wedding by June. Thoughts, Tyler. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the conference table, trying to anchor myself to something solid. My son had written a 10-step plan to imprison me, to steal my house, my retirement, my freedom, to manufacture evidence of cognitive decline, to trap me in a locked facility while he liquidated everything I'd spent 43 years building. Douglas gave me a moment, then clicked to the next email. From Scott Whitman to Tyler Caldwell, Stephanie Whitman. Date October 4th. Subject: re-timeline and steps. Legal framework. Tyler and Stephanie, I can draft the POA and guardianship petition. But you absolutely need medical documentation to support the cognitive decline claim. Courts won't grant emergency guardianship without a doctor's statement. I have a colleague, Dr. Richard Moss, who does consulting work for elder care cases. He's sympathetic to family concerns. If you can get your father to an appointment, Dr. Moss can document what we need. My fee structure: 15% of total assets recovered. Based on your $737,000 estimate, that's $110,550. I'll need half up front once the guardianship is granted, remainder when assets are liquidated. Let me know when you want to move forward. Scott Whitman, Esquire, a lawyer. They'd found a lawyer willing to fabricate medical documentation for a 15% cut. Douglas clicked to one more email. From Stephanie Whitman to Tyler Caldwell. Date: October 6th. Subject: Nicole Tyler. Is Nicole fully on board with this? I know she's pushing for the wedding money, but does she understand what we're actually doing here? We need to make sure she's committed. The last thing we need is her getting cold feet halfway through. Tyler's response came 2 hours later. Nicole's fine. I told her Dad's money will fund the wedding and our down payment on a house in West Lynn. She knows we're getting guardianship. She knows the timeline. She's in. Don't worry about Nicole. She wants this as much as we do. Douglas closed the laptop. The silence in my office was suffocating. Tyler was stupid enough to conduct this entire conspiracy using his Freeman Logistics email account, Douglas said. Every message archived, every attachment preserved, every wire transfer traceable. He looked at me with something like sorrow. But there's more, James. The next email shows they'd already chosen the doctor, and they'd already scheduled your appointment. Douglas scrolled through more emails, each one a deeper cut than the last. Email 6, he said, clicking on a message dated October 8th. This is where they set the trap. From Tyler Caldwell to Stephanie Whitman. Date October 8th. Subject: medical appointment confirmed. Dr. Richard Moss can see Dad on October 15th at 2:00 p.m. His office is in Beaverton, easy to get to. Here's the script. I'll tell Dad it's a routine checkup required for his consulting insurance renewal. He's paranoid about losing coverage, so he won't question it. You show up as concerned family, maybe 15 minutes into the appointment. You mention Dad's recent memory issues and confusion about finances. Keep it vague but worrying. Dr. Moss will take it from there. Scott says Moss is experienced with these evaluations. He'll document observable cognitive decline and recommend supervised care environment for patient safety. Once we have that medical documentation, Scott can file the emergency guardianship petition within a week. Stephanie's response came 3 hours later. What if Dad refuses to go? Tyler's reply was immediate. He won't. I'll tell him the insurance company requires it for policy renewal. I'll even offer to drive him there myself. He trusts me. I felt bile rise in my throat. Tyler knew exactly which lie would work. Knew I'd been worried about maintaining my professional liability coverage. Knew I'd go to any appointment if I thought my insurance was at stake. They had it all planned, Douglas said quietly. Every word Tyler would say. Every concern Stephanie would raise. Even which doctor would write the fraudulent evaluation. He clicked to the next email, this one between Tyler and Nicole. The subject line was Timeline Update. From Tyler Caldwell to Nicole Harper. Date October 12th. Subject: Timeline Update. Babe, I know you're worried about the money. Here's exactly how this plays out. Week 8 to 10, after the party, file guardianship petition. Week 12, move Dad to memory care facility. Week 14, list the house. Week 16, house sells, estimated $450,000. Week 18, retirement accounts, transferred $287,000. Total assets, $737,000. Now the deductions: memory care costs $8,200 per month, times 12 months equals $98,400. After care costs, $638,600. Scott's legal fee 15%, $110,550 net, remaining $528,050 rounded to $530,000 to be conservative. Here's our budget. Wedding your dream venue full package $120,000, down payment on West Lynn House $350,000. Honeymoon Europe 3 weeks, $25,000. Emergency fund/buffer, $35,000. Total $530,000. We'll be married by June. New house by August. Dad will be safe in professional care. Everyone wins. I know the timeline feels long, but we need to do this right. Once the guardianship is in place, everything else is just paperwork. Love you, this is happening. Nicole's response was brief, okay. But what if he fights this? What if he's not actually declining? Tyler's reply chilled me. He won't fight. By the time he realizes what's happening, the guardianship will be court-ordered. And Stephanie says once someone's admitted to a memory care facility, they don't just let them leave. We'll have months before any challenge could even be filed. By then, the house will be sold, and the money will be moved. He'll have no resources to fight us. Douglas let me sit with that for a moment, before clicking to another email thread. This one is from Stephanie to Tyler and Scott, he said. About your wife's estate. From Stephanie Whitman to Tyler Caldwell. Scott Whitman, date, October 18th, subject. Helen's will probate status, Tyler and Scott. I pulled the probate records for Helen Caldwell died, March 2024. Dad inherited everything, approximately $95,000 in her accounts, plus some personal property. The probate is still open. It won't close until March 2025 at the earliest. Scott. If we have guardianship in place by March, can we petition for immediate access to those funds? Argument would be necessary for Dad's care costs. That would bring total available assets to $832,000. Thoughts S. Scott Whitman's response was immediate yes. Once guardianship is established, we can petition for access to any assets held in probate for the ward's benefit. Judge will likely approve, especially if we show memory care costs. That $95,000 becomes accessible immediately. Good thinking, Stephanie. Tyler's reply came an hour later. Perfect. So we're looking at $832,000 total, not $737,000. Even better. Nicole will be thrilled. We can bump the wedding budget to $140,000 and still have everything we need. I stared at Helen's name on the screen. The money she'd left me, the savings she'd accumulated over 40 years of careful living, the nest egg she'd wanted me to have after she was gone, they'd already divided it up, already spent it in their heads. They were planning to steal your wife's inheritance, Douglas said quietly, while her probate was still open, while you were still grieving. He closed the laptop and looked at me with something that might have been pity or might have been rage, I couldn't tell which. They planned every week, every dollar. They calculated care costs, legal fees, wedding expenses, down payments. They mapped out exactly how to trap you, liquidate your assets, and divide the proceeds. He paused. But Tyler made one critical miscalculation. What? Nicole Harper. Douglas pulled out another folder thinner than the others. The label read, Nicole Harper, Background Investigation. When I started investigating Tyler, I also looked into his fiancée. What I found? Douglas opened the folder. Nicole Harper isn't a victim in this, James. She's a predator, and Tyler isn't her first target. He slid a document toward me, a private investigator's report, 12 pages long. Nicole has a pattern, and once I saw it, everything else made sense. Tyler and Stephanie had planned everything, every week, every dollar, even Helen's inheritance. But when Tyler's plan fails, will Nicole stay loyal or drop a comment with your prediction below? Transparency note. This story is a scripted narrative designed for impact. While the emotions are real, the characters are fictional. If this style isn't for you, feel free to click away, no hard feelings. Douglas opened a thin folder labeled Nicole Harper, Background Investigation. Inside was a private investigator's report meticulously documented with dates, names, and photographs. Nicole Harper. Douglas began, is 31 years old. She's been engaged 3 times in the past 5 years. Never married. Each engagement ended abruptly, and each target had one thing in common. He spread 3 photographs across the table. 2019 Richard Ashford, age 68, widower. Net worth approximately $1.2 million, mostly in real estate and retirement accounts. Nicole met him at a charity fundraiser in Lake Oswego. They were engaged 4 months later. The photograph showed an older man with silver hair standing next to Nicole at what appeared to be a formal event. Her hand rested on his arm, her smile bright and practiced. The engagement ended after Ashford's son threatened to file a lawsuit. He'd discovered Nicole pressuring his father to add her name to bank accounts and update his will. Richard's lawyer sent a cease and desist letter. Nicole disappeared. Douglas moved to the second photograph. 2021 Martin Reynolds, age 61, divorced. Net worth approximately $890,000. Nicole met him at a wine tasting event in Portland. They dated for 7 months. This photograph showed a younger man fit and tanned with Nicole beside him on what looked like a yacht. Reynolds discovered Nicole had been researching his financial accounts and contacting his estate attorney without his knowledge. When he confronted her, she claimed she was just trying to help with planning. He ended the relationship. His attorney issued another cease and desist. The third photograph was one I recognized: Tyler and Nicole at their engagement party, smiling for the camera. 2023 Tyler Caldwell, age 33. Nicole met him at a corporate networking event in September. Engaged 4 months later. And this time she found exactly what she was looking for: someone desperate enough and ruthless enough to actually execute her plan. Douglas pulled out a series of text messages printed and highlighted. We subpoenaed Nicole's phone records as part of the investigation. These are messages between Nicole and a friend, someone she confided in, about her strategy. The first message made my stomach turn. Nicole to friend, March 2023, Rule 1. Target men with aging parents or recent inheritance. They're emotional, vulnerable, and desperate to prove they're good sons. Rule 2, move fast. Engagement within 6 months. Marriage within 12. Don't give them time to think. Rule 3, identify all assets early. House, retirement accounts, trusts. Know exactly what you're working with. Rule 4, if parents are alive, encourage family involvement, especially guardianship. It's legal, fast, and hard to challenge once it's in place. Rule 5. Once you're married, you're entitled to marital assets. If guardianship is established, even better, you help manage everything. She had a system, Douglas said quietly. A predatory system targeting vulnerable men and their aging parents' assets. He showed me more messages, these between Nicole and Tyler, in the weeks before the engagement party. Nicole to Tyler. August 28th, come. I need this to move fast. My lease is up in January. I'm 31. I can't keep waiting. Tyler to Nicole, August 28th, I know. Trust me, once we have guardianship and the house sells, we're set. $737,000. That's our future. Nicole to Tyler. August 30th, and the wedding, I want $120,000 minimum. My friends need to see this. Tyler to Nicole, August 30th, done. We'll have $530,000 after fees and care costs. Wedding house down payment, everything you want. Then came the messages after Tyler was fired. Douglas pulled out a stack of printouts text messages from Nicole to Tyler over a 2-week period. Nicole to Tyler. November 3rd day after termination. Tyler, what the fuck is going on? Douglas Freeman called me yesterday. He asked about our financial timeline. What did you do, Tyler to Nicole? November 3rd, ignore him. He's fishing. This is about my dad trying to sabotage me. Nicole to Tyler, November 4th. Fishing for what did you do something illegal? No response from Tyler for 3 days. Nicole to Tyler. November 7th. Tyler, I'm not stupid. If you're in legal trouble, I need to know now. I'm not going down with you. Still no response. Nicole to Tyler, November 10th. We're done. Don't contact me again. Douglas pulled out another document, a voicemail log, 23 entries, highlighted in yellow. After Nicole broke off the engagement, Tyler left her 23 voicemails over 2 weeks. We obtained them through court order. He played the first one. Tyler's voice came through the laptop speaker, desperate and pleading. Babe, call me back. Please, we need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. By voicemail 6, the tone had shifted. Nicole, you can't just abandon me. We have a plan, $530,000, remember the wedding. Our house, voicemail 15, was darker. If you leave me now, I'll tell everyone about Richard and Martin. I have screenshots of your messages. I know what you do. The final voicemail number, the 23, was pure rage. Fine. Fuck you. You're just like them. Gold-digging bitch. I'll handle this myself. I don't need you. Douglas stopped the playback. Nicole Harper vanished 3 days after that last voicemail. We tracked her to Arizona. She's already engaged to another man, 59 years old, recently widowed estate worth approximately $2 million. He closed the folder. Tyler thought he'd found the perfect partner for his scheme. What he actually found was someone better at the game than he was. Nicole was using him just as much as he was using you. Douglas pulled out one more document, something that looked official with the Freeman Logistics letterhead. But there's something else Tyler created, something that shows just how far he was willing to go. He slid the document toward me. It was a consulting contract dated September 15th, 1 week before the engagement party. The contract was between Freeman Logistics and James Caldwell Financial Consulting. Term 6 months. Value $320,000. At the bottom, a signature, Douglas Freeman. I never signed this, Douglas said flatly. Tyler forged my signature. He created a fake contract to show Nicole he had secured you as a paid consultant. Proof of legitimate income, financial stability, everything she wanted to see. He forged your signature. He forged my signature, and that's not all he forged. Douglas's expression hardened. Tonight, Nathan Pierce and my IT security team are coming here because Tyler created something else, something designed to frame you. And what they found. He paused. It's the most damning evidence of all. 7 o'clock arrived with the sound of footsteps on the stairs outside my office. Douglas had left an hour earlier, giving me time to process what I'd learned. Time that had only made everything worse. The door opened. 2 people entered, a man in his 50s, carrying a laptop case, and a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and an air of quiet competence. James Caldwell, the man said, extending his hand. Nathan Pierce, forensic accountant. This is Sarah, IT security director for Freeman Logistics. We settled at the conference table. Nathan opened his laptop while Sarah pulled out a tablet and a thick folder of printouts. Mr. Caldwell, Nathan began. What we're about to show you represents approximately 200 hours of digital forensics work. What your son created wasn't just fraud, It was an elaborate attempt to frame you for his crimes. Sarah turned her tablet toward me. The screen showed an email inbox, but not one I recognized. 5 days after your son's engagement party, Sarah said, an email was sent to Douglas Freeman and 3 Freeman Logistics board members. The sender address was jamescaldwell.consulting@gmail.com. My blood ran cold. That's not my email address. We know, Nathan said. Your actual business email is jamescaldwell@caldwellfinancial.com, registered to your domain since 2009. This Gmail account was created specifically to impersonate you. Sarah pulled up the email. The subject line read, "Concerns about Tyler Caldwell's performance." I read the message, my hands shaking. Dear Mr. Freeman, as Tyler's father and a financial consultant with 43 years of experience, I must express serious concerns about my son's conduct at Freeman Logistics. I've recently reviewed his expense reports and discovered discrepancies totaling approximately $145,000. I believe he may be systematically misusing company funds for personal expenses. Given the severity of these findings, I recommend immediate termination to protect Freeman Logistics from further liability. I'm available to consult on this matter and can provide detailed analysis of the irregularities I've identified. Best regards, James Caldwell Financial Consulting. I never wrote this. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I never sent this. We know, Sarah repeated. That's why we're here. She pulled up a technical analysis screen filled with data I didn't understand. IP addresses, timestamps, server logs. The email was sent from IP address 192.168.1.47, Sarah explained. We traced that address to Tyler Caldwell's workstation at Freeman Logistics, 3rd floor, northwest corner office. Nathan added, the timestamp shows the email was composed over 36 minutes from 11:42 p.m. to 12:18 a.m. on September 26th. That's a Tuesday night, a night when building security logs show Tyler was working late. Sarah scrolled through more data. The Gmail account jamescaldwell.consulting@gmail.com was created on September 26th at 9:15 a.m., the same day the email was sent. The account sent exactly one email, this one, and was deleted 2 days later. We recovered the deleted account data from Google's servers through a court-ordered subpoena, Nathan said. What we found was extensive. Sarah pulled up a series of draft emails, all variations of the same message. Tyler created 7 drafts before sending the final version, she explained. Each draft shows him refining the language, trying to make it sound like you. Draft 1 was crude, angry. Douglas, my son is stealing from you. Fire him immediately. Draft 3 was more calculated. Mr. Freeman, I've discovered evidence that Tyler has been misappropriating company funds. Draft 5 added professional touches. As a financial consultant, I must recommend. The final draft, the one sent, was polished, careful, designed to sound exactly like how a concerned father and professional consultant would write. He spent 36 minutes perfecting this, Sarah said. Testing different tones, different phrasings. He wanted it to sound authentically like you while being damaging enough to create grounds for a lawsuit. A lawsuit? I asked. Nathan opened a separate folder. Tyler's plan had 3 stages. Stage 1, create the fake email, making it look like you reported him to Douglas. Stage 2, get fired by Freeman Logistics based on legitimate fraud investigation. Stage 3, sue you for defamation, interference with employment, and emotional distress. He showed me a document, a draft complaint, prepared by Scott Whitman, the lawyer involved in the guardianship plot. No. Tyler planned to claim you maliciously interfered with his employment that you fabricated fraud allegations to destroy his career, and that Douglas fired him based on your false report. He was going to demand $500,000 in damages. But I didn't send any email, I said. Exactly, Nathan replied. But if Douglas hadn't had sophisticated IT forensics capabilities, Tyler's story would have been plausible. An email that appeared to come from you sent to Tyler's employer reporting fraud that was conveniently actually happening. Tyler could claim you exaggerated or fabricated details. He could argue family vendetta. Sarah pulled up another screen. We also recovered Tyler's browser history from his workstation. 3 days before creating the fake email, he searched for how to create fake email address. Can emails be traced to sender? Statute of Limitations, Defamation, Oregon. And how to sue family member. She scrolled through more searches. He also researched Gmail account creation anonymous, VPN services free, and digital evidence court admissibility. He knew what he was doing was traceable. He just didn't think anyone would look. Nathan closed his laptop. If you'd been in a memory care facility under guardianship when this lawsuit hit, you'd have had no ability to defend yourself. Tyler would have controlled your assets through guardianship, making you unable to hire legal representation. He would have won by default. The room spun slightly. Sarah looked at me with something like sympathy. Mr. Caldwell, there's more. The fake email account wasn't the only one Tyler created. She pulled up 3 more accounts, each one flagged in her system. stephwhitman.family@gmail.com, nicoleharper.wedding@gmail.com, helencaldwell.estate@gmail.com. 3 more fake accounts, Sarah said quietly. 1 impersonating Stephanie, 1 impersonating Nicole, and 1, she paused, 1 impersonating your late wife. My vision blurred. What did he use them for? Sarah and Nathan exchanged a glance. That, Nathan said, is what we need to show you next, Thursday morning, 9 o'clock. I wasn't there when it happened, but Douglas called me 30 minutes later to tell me everything. Tyler had been summoned to the main conference room at Freeman Logistics. When he walked in, he found 4 people waiting. Douglas Freeman, Nathan Pierce, Sarah from IT Security, and a man Tyler had never met, Henry Matthews, my attorney. Tyler Caldwell. Douglas began without preamble. Effective immediately, you are terminated for gross misconduct and fraud. Tyler's response was immediate. What? This is insane. My father is sabotaging me. Douglas didn't react. He simply placed 3 folders on the conference table, the same 3 folders I'd seen 2 days earlier. Folder 1, Douglas said, opening it. Trevor Wade case. You stole his work on the Pacific retail distribution contract worth $2.3 million. You received a $47,000 commission for work you didn't do. Trevor quit because of you. Tyler's face reddened. That's not, I managed that account. Folder 2. Douglas opened the second folder. Expense fraud totaling $145,000 over 4 years. Vegas trips with no clients. Miami conferences that didn't exist. Portland restaurant bills on weekends when you had no scheduled meetings. We have your credit card statements cross-referenced with your calendar and building security footage. Those were legitimate business expenses. Folder 3. Douglas opened the thickest folder. 12 fake vendors, shell companies created using P.O. boxes, $62,000 in fraudulent invoices for services never rendered. Wire transfers going directly to bank accounts you control. He closed all 3 folders. Total misappropriation $254,000. Tyler stood. You can't prove any of this. Sit down, Douglas said quietly. The command in his voice was absolute. Tyler sat. Nathan Pierce leaned forward. We also have email evidence of a conspiracy to fraudulently obtain guardianship over your father, James Caldwell. Emails detailing plans to fabricate medical evidence, forge power of attorney documents, and institutionalize him in order to liquidate his assets estimated at $737,000. Tyler's face went pale. We have, Nathan continued, a fake consulting contract worth $320,000 bearing Douglas Freeman's forged signature created to deceive your fiancée, Nicole Harper, about your financial stability. He slid the contract across the table. We have handwriting analysis from 3 independent experts. This signature is a forgery. Sarah pulled out her tablet. We have evidence you created 4 fake email accounts, one impersonating your father, one impersonating Stephanie Whitman, one impersonating Nicole Harper, and one impersonating your deceased mother, Helen Caldwell. Tyler's voice cracked. This is you're making this up. We have metadata. Sarah continued, her voice clinical. IP addresses traced to your workstation. Timestamps showing you composed a fake email from your father over 36 minutes late at night. Browser history showing you researched how to create untraceable emails and how to sue family members for defamation. Henry Matthews spoke for the first time. We also have evidence that you transferred $21,000 money your father withdrew from his retirement account to save your engagement party into a joint account with Nicole Harper to use as a down payment on a house in West Lynn. Tyler's hands were shaking now. My father gave me that money. Your father saved your engagement party, Henry said flatly. You promised to repay him. You never did. Instead, you used his money to fund a house purchase while simultaneously planning to have him declared incompetent and institutionalized. Douglas stood. Freeman Logistics is filing for civil recovery of all misappropriated funds, $254,000 plus damages and legal fees. He paused. We've also referred your case to the district attorney. You're facing criminal charges of wire fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit elder abuse. Because you used company email servers to conduct fraud across state lines, federal charges are being considered. Tyler's face had gone from pale to gray. You can't. I have rights. I'll sue all of you. With what money? Douglas asked quietly. With what credibility? With what attorney willing to touch a case this toxic? He nodded to building security, who'd been standing by the door. Escort Mr. Caldwell from the building. His access is revoked immediately. Personal items will be boxed and shipped. As Tyler was being let out, he turned back, his voice desperate. My father set me up. He's been trying to destroy me since... Your father, Douglas interrupted, doesn't even know this meeting is happening. I haven't spoken to him since Tuesday. This has nothing to do with him and everything to do with what you've done. The door closed behind Tyler. Douglas called me 20 minutes later. It's done, he said simply. Tyler's been terminated. Criminal referrals are filed. And there's something else you need to know. What? Stephanie Whitman was arrested an hour ago. She's being charged as a co-conspirator in the guardianship plot. Her lawyer, Scott Whitman, the same one who was helping plan your institutionalization, is under investigation by the state bar. I couldn't speak. Stephanie's already working on a plea deal, Douglas continued. She's offering to testify against Tyler in exchange for reduced charges. Her attorney is negotiating for 5 years suspended sentence probation instead of prison if she cooperates fully. Shakitum and Nicole. Nicole Harper is gone. Engagement called off the day Tyler was fired. The West Lynn house escrow is canceled. Her phone is disconnected. We traced her to Arizona. She's already seeing someone new. A 59-year-old widower. the pattern continuing, the predator moving on. James. Douglas said, his voice softer now. Henry Matthews is here with me. He has something for you, something Helen left with him before she died. She told him to give it to you only after the truth came out. My chest tightened. He said you need to come get it. Today. What is it? I don't know. Henry won't tell me. He says it's for you alone. There was a pause. But James, whatever Helen left you, she knew. Somehow she knew what Tyler was. And she left you something to help you survive it. November came cold and gray, matching the 3 weeks I spent sitting in a federal courtroom watching my son's trial. The charges were read on the first day, each one striking like a physical blow. Count 1, wire fraud, using electronic communications to commit fraud across state lines. Maximum sentence, 20 years. Count 2, embezzlement theft of $254,000 from Freeman Logistics over 4 years. Maximum sentence, 10 years. Count 3, forgery, falsifying Douglas Freeman's signature on a $320,000 consulting contract and creating fraudulent power of attorney documents. Maximum sentence, 5 years. Count 4, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, planning to fraudulently obtain guardianship and institutionalize a competent adult for financial gain. Maximum sentence, 7 years. Total maximum exposure, 42 years in federal prison. Tyler sat at the defense table in a suit I'd never seen before, his court-appointed attorney beside him. Nicole was nowhere to be seen. Stephanie sat in the gallery on the prosecution's side, having already accepted her plea deal. The witnesses came one after another, each testimony building an inescapable wall of evidence. Day 3, Douglas Freeman took the stand. He explained the 2009 crisis, how I'd saved his company, how he'd kept my report for 15 years. Then he detailed Tyler's fraud, the stolen commission from Trevor Wade, the expense fraud, the shell companies. Tyler's attorney tried to argue it was aggressive accounting and management discretion. Douglas's response was devastating. Submitting fake invoices from companies that don't exist isn't accounting. It's theft. Day 5, Trevor Wade testified. He was 26 now, working for a competitor, visibly nervous. He explained how he'd spent 3 months creating the Pacific retail proposal, how Tyler had told him to keep quiet, how Tyler had presented Trevor's work as his own and collected $47,000 in commission. Under cross-examination, Tyler's attorney tried to suggest Trevor was bitter about not getting promoted. Trevor's response was simple. I'm not bitter. I'm telling the truth. Tyler stole my work. Day 7. Nathan Pierce, the forensic accountant, spent 6 hours walking the jury through spreadsheets, bank statements, and wire transfer records. He showed how Tyler had created 12 fake vendors, how the money had flowed to accounts Tyler controlled, how the pattern was systematic and deliberate. Day 9. Sarah from IT Security presented the metadata evidence, the fake email account impersonating me, the 36 minutes Tyler spent crafting it, the 7 drafts, the browser history showing searches for how to create fake email and can emails be traced. The jury watched Tyler's face as Sarah displayed his own search history on the courtroom screens. He looked away. Day 11. Stephanie Whitman took the stand under her plea agreement. She testified about the guardianship plot, to the emails, the timeline, the plans to fabricate medical evidence, the memory care facilities they'd researched, the lawyer Scott Whitman, who'd agreed to help for 15%. She read Tyler's own words aloud. Keep Dad in the facility long enough that any legal challenge becomes moot. The courtroom was silent. Day 13. I took the stand. The prosecutor asked me to explain what I'd discovered, the $21,000 I'd transferred from retirement to save Tyler's engagement party. Tyler's promise to repay me the money disappearing into a joint account with Nicole for a house down payment. I explained the vendor contracts I'd negotiated, the crises I'd solved, the humiliation at the engagement party, when Tyler called me a freeloader who'd contributed nothing. Tyler's attorney tried to suggest I was exaggerating, that family conflicts were being blown out of proportion. The prosecutor showed the jury my bank statements, the $21,000 withdrawal, the confirmation emails to the photographer, and banned Tyler's text, promising to pay you back by Friday. "Did he pay you back?" the prosecutor asked. "No," I said. "Did he ever intend to pay you back?" I looked at Tyler. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "No," I said. "He was planning to have me institutionalized and take everything." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. Judge Patricia Morrison asked for the verdict on count 1. "Guilty." Count 2, "Guilty." Count 3, "Guilty." Count 4, "Guilty." Tyler's face went blank. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder. Tyler shook it off. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Judge Morrison looked at Tyler with something close to contempt. "Mr. Caldwell, you systematically defrauded your employer, stole credit from colleagues, and conspired to imprison your own father, a man who'd spent 43 years building a reputation on integrity in order to steal his life savings. This court finds your conduct not merely criminal, but morally reprehensible." She paused. "You are sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. No possibility of early release under federal sentencing guidelines. Upon release, you will serve 5 years of supervised probation. You are ordered to pay restitution of $254,000 to Freeman Logistics and $95,000 to James Caldwell, representing funds stolen from your mother's estate that you intended to misappropriate. Total restitution $349,000 to be paid over 10 years following your release." Tyler was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look back. Stephanie received her sentence the same day, 5 years suspended, meaning probation only conditional on her continued cooperation. She was ordered to pay me $50,000 for legal fees and complete 1,000 hours of community service. Scott Whitman, the attorney who'd helped plan my institutionalization, had his law license permanently suspended by the state bar pending criminal investigation. Nicole Harper was never charged. Prosecutors determined there wasn't enough evidence she'd known the full scope of Tyler's plans. We later learned she was in Arizona, already engaged to a 59-year-old widower with an estate worth approximately $2 million. The pattern continuing. Outside the courthouse, Henry Matthews pulled me aside. "James, there's something you need to see. Helen left it with me 2 months before she died. She made me promise to give it to you only after," he gestured toward the courthouse, "after the truth came out." He handed me a sealed envelope. January came 1 year after the trial. The snow fell heavy over Portland, blanketing the city in silence. Douglas arrived at my Pearl District office on a Tuesday morning, carrying a leather box I'd never seen before. He set it on my conference table with a reverence that made my chest tighten. "Henry gave this to me yesterday," Douglas said quietly. "He asked me to bring it to you personally. Helen left it with him 6 months before she died." The box was old, worn at the edges, secured with a brass clasp. I opened it slowly. Inside was a leather-bound journal, the kind Helen had always preferred, simple, practical, with unlined pages she'd fill with her precise handwriting. A yellow post-it note was stuck to the cover. "For James. Read this when you're ready to understand." Helen, my hands trembled as I opened to the first entry. The journal began in March 2022. Helen wrote that Tyler had visited and didn't ask about her health after the latest tests. He only asked about the will, whether she'd updated it, whether James was the sole beneficiary. When she said yes, his expression changed. Something cold slid behind his eyes, something calculating. She wrote, "I've never been afraid of my own son before. Today I was." By June, Stephanie had called asking if James had financial planning documents readily available. Helen noted, "I'm 68. James is 63. We're not that old. Something is happening." In September, Helen hired a private investigator. She knew how it sounded paranoid crazy, but she needed to know what Tyler and Stephanie were hiding. The PI report came back in November. Tyler was committing expense fraud at Freeman Logistics' systematic deliberate theft over multiple years. Stephanie had been contacting lawyers about elder guardianship petitions. They were researching memory care facilities. Helen wrote, "My son is planning to imprison my husband." I read that sentence 3 times. I still can't believe I wrote it. In January 2023, Helen confronted Tyler directly. She asked about the fraud, about the guardianship research. He denied everything. Told her she was paranoid, that she needed help, that she was imagining things because of cancer medications. But she saw the truth in his eyes, the way they went flat when she mentioned guardianship, the way his jaw tightened. She wrote, "He's not my son anymore. He's a stranger, a dangerous stranger." Then came the entry that broke me. March 8, 2023. Helen made her decision, the hardest decision of her life. She wasn't going to tell me what she knew. If she told me, I wouldn't believe her. I'd think she was confused, that the cancer had affected her judgment. I'd defend Tyler, make excuses, rationalize everything. Because that's what I did. I saw the best in people even when they didn't deserve it. She wrote, "James needs to see the truth for himself. He needs to experience Tyler's betrayal firsthand. Only then will he believe it. Only then will he be able to break free." By May, Helen had decided to ask me to help Tyler one more time. She'd frame it as her dying wish that I give Tyler another chance, that I be there for our son. She knew I'd agree because I loved her, and she knew Tyler would betray me. He couldn't help himself. She wrote, "This is the cruelest kindness I've ever offered my husband, but it's the only way he'll finally see." The August entries were written as she was dying. Dr. Patterson had given her 6 months, maybe 8. She'd written letters, made arrangements. Henry Matthews had her instructions. This journal would be given to me after the truth came out, after Tyler's betrayal was undeniable, after I could no longer make excuses. She wrote, "This is my final gift to him, proof that I knew. Proof that I saw what Tyler was. Proof that everything I did was because I loved him enough to let him discover the truth on his own terms. James deserves freedom from our children." The final entry was August 28, 2023. Helen had seen Tyler that day. He'd asked again about the will, about my retirement accounts, about the house appraisal. He had no idea she knew everything. No idea she'd documented everything. She wrote about a dinner Henry would organize after the trial, after Tyler was sentenced, after the full truth was public. At that dinner, I would see clearly who stood with me and who didn't. Who in this family deserved my loyalty and who had only ever taken from me. She wrote, "That's when he'll know who to cut away. That's when he'll finally be free. I won't be there to see it, but I'll have given him the tools to survive it." That's what love is sometimes. Letting go so the person you love can finally see clearly. I closed the journal, my vision blurred with tears. Helen had known everything. Had watched Tyler's betrayal unfold with her dying eyes. Had chosen silence not out of weakness, but out of a terrible loving wisdom, understanding that I needed to see the truth myself, that no warning from her would have been enough. Douglas sat across from me waiting. "There's more," he said quietly. "The last page, there's an instruction." I turned to the final page. Helen's handwriting shaky now from illness. Henry will organize a family dinner 3 months after the trial. At that dinner, the full truth will be revealed to everyone, not just Tyler's crimes, but every unpaid debt, every broken promise, every member of this family who has used James and given nothing back. That dinner will show James who deserves to remain in his life and who needs to be cut away forever. Douglas looked at me. Henry's ready when you are. March, 3 months from now. He'll invite everyone, your whole family, and the truth will come out. I stared at Helen's final words. Set the date, I said. March arrived with the invitation I'd been dreading. Henry Matthews sent formal letters to everyone in my family, Leonard, Kenneth, Laura, and their spouses. Douglas Freeman received one. Nathan Pierce received one. Even Trevor Wade, the young analyst Tyler had stolen from, received one. Tyler and Stephanie were not invited. They were in federal prison. Nicole was nowhere to be found, still in Arizona, we assumed, still hunting. The dinner was set for a Saturday evening at Henry's home in the West Hills. When I arrived, the dining room table was set for 12. Crystal glasses, fine china. The formality of it made my stomach turn. Everyone arrived within 20 minutes. Leonard and his wife Martha, Kenneth and his partner David, Laura and her husband Robert. They greeted me with careful smiles and nervous small talk, clearly unsure why they'd been summoned to a lawyer's home for dinner with their father. Douglas arrived last, carrying a leather briefcase that matched the one he'd brought to my office months ago. When everyone was seated, Henry stood at the head of the table. He didn't smile. Thank you all for coming, Henry began. I've invited you here tonight because there are truths that need to be spoken. Things that have remained hidden for too long. Things that James has been too kind, too generous to say himself. The room went silent. This dinner was Helen's idea, Henry continued. Before she died, she left instructions with me. She said that after Tyler's trial, after the full scope of his betrayal became public, this family needed to hear some other truths. Truths about who James Caldwell really is, and who the rest of you have been to him. Leonard shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Kenneth stared at his plate. Let's start with you, Leonard, Henry said, pulling out a folder. He opened it and removed a series of documents. Medical bills, bank statements, canceled checks. June 2016. You were diagnosed with macular degeneration. You needed surgery, specialized treatment that wasn't covered by your insurance. The cost was $55,000. You called James desperate. You said you'd lose your vision without treatment. Leonard's face reddened. James withdrew $55,000 from his retirement account. Henry continued. He told you not to worry about paying it back immediately. He said, family takes care of family. You promised to repay him within 2 years. Henry slid the documents across the table. That was 8 years ago. You've never repaid a single dollar. And when James mentioned it once, just once, at a Christmas dinner 3 years ago, you told him he was being petty about money. Martha, Leonard's wife, stared at her husband. Leonard looked away. Kenneth, Henry said, turning to my middle son. Your turn. Kenneth's eyes widened. Henry pulled out another folder. February 2018. You wanted to start a business, a coffee roasting company. You needed startup capital. Banks wouldn't loan to you because you had poor credit. You came to James and asked for $28,000. You said it was a loan that you'd pay him back with interest once the business took off. Henry showed the bank statement, my withdrawal of $28,000 transferred to Kenneth's business account. Your business failed within 18 months, Henry said quietly. You never mentioned repaying the loan. When James asked about it 2 years ago, you said you'd lost everything. and couldn't possibly pay him back. You made him feel guilty for asking. Kenneth's partner David looked at him with surprise. Kenneth's jaw tightened. And Laura, Henry said, his voice gentler now but no less firm. You're not off the hook either. Laura, my only daughter, paled. Henry opened a third folder. October 2019. You and Robert wanted to buy your first house. You'd been approved for a mortgage, but you needed $35,000 for the down payment. You asked James for help. He gave you the money, told you it was a gift, that parents help their children get started. Henry showed the bank transfer. But 6 months later, when James was struggling with his own expenses after Helen's cancer diagnosis, you told him you'd pay back the loan when you could. You turned his gift into a debt, but only when it was convenient for you. When he needed help, you said you couldn't afford to repay him. But you and Robert took 2 European vacations in the past 3 years. Laura's eyes filled with tears. Robert looked stunned. Henry closed all 3 folders and stacked them neatly. Let me summarize, he said. Leonard, $55,000 for surgery, never repaid. Kenneth, $28,000 for business startup, never repaid. Laura, $35,000 for house down payment, never repaid. He wrote the numbers on a notepad and held it up. Total, James has given to his 3 children $118,000. Total amount repaid $0. The silence in the room was suffocating. And when Tyler stood up at his engagement party and called James a freeloader who contributed nothing to his life, none of you said a word. When Tyler humiliated your father in front of 80 people, you sat there silently. Some of you even nodded along. Leonard started to speak. Henry, this isn't fair. Fair. Henry's voice cut like a blade. Tyler is in federal prison for trying to institutionalize James and steal everything he has. Stephanie is serving probation for conspiracy. And the 3 of you, he gestured to Leonard, Kenneth, and Laura, you've spent years taking from James and giving nothing back. Douglas stood and placed his briefcase on the table. He opened it slowly. But that's not all, Douglas said quietly. Because Tyler wasn't the only one who betrayed James. He's just the only one who committed crimes. He pulled out a thick folder and set it in the center of the table. There's more you all need to hear. Henry opened the thick folder Douglas had placed on the table. Inside were bank statements, email printouts, and legal documents, all marked with highlighter and sticky notes. What you've heard so far, Henry said quietly, is about debts unpaid and kindness unreturned. What you're about to hear is about theft, conspiracy, and betrayal at a level that goes beyond anything Leonard, Kenneth, or Laura have done. He pulled out the first set of documents, bank statements, from Helen's retirement accounts. Helen Caldwell died on March 18, 2024. She left her entire estate to James, approximately $95,000 in retirement accounts, plus personal property. The probate was straightforward. Everything was documented. Henry slid the statements across the table. Except that $75,000 disappeared from Helen's accounts within 2 weeks of her death, before probate even opened. The room went dead silent. Tyler and Stephanie accessed Helen's accounts using power of attorney documents they'd convinced her to sign months earlier. They told her it was just in case something happened, and James needed help managing things. Helen signed because she trusted them. He showed transfer records. $75,000 moved from Helen's retirement accounts into an account controlled by Tyler and Stephanie. The transfers were dated March 22nd and March 24th, just days after Helen's death. Scott Whitman, the attorney who helped plan James's institutionalization, facilitated these transfers. He told Tyler and Stephanie that once the money was moved, It would be difficult to trace and could be claimed as estate management fees. Kenneth gasped. Laura covered her mouth. Even Leonard looked shocked. Tyler and Stephanie stole $75,000 from their own mother's estate while James was planning her funeral. Douglas spoke next, his voice measured but cold. That brings us to September, the engagement party. James received an urgent call from Tyler 3 months before the party. Tyler needed help reviewing vendor contracts. James discovered a catastrophic penalty clause, $40,000 if timing went wrong. He spent 3 nights negotiating it away. Douglas pulled out email threads. 2 weeks before the party, the photographer and band hadn't been paid. Their deposits, $12,500 and $8,500 respectively, were overdue. Total $21,000. Without those deposits, the party would have been canceled. He showed my bank statement, the withdrawal of $21,000 from my retirement account. James paid both deposits from his own retirement savings. Tyler promised to repay him by Friday. That was September 19th. Douglas showed text messages, Tyler's promises to pay you back by Friday, Dad, and you're a lifesaver. Tyler never repaid the money. Instead, he transferred it into a joint account with Nicole Harper and used it as part of a down payment on a house in West Lynn. Douglas looked around the table. And then, at the engagement party James had saved with his own retirement money, Tyler stood up in front of 80 people and called his father a freeloader who'd contributed nothing. He said James had never helped him with anything. He said he and Nicole had planned everything themselves. Laura was crying now. Kenneth stared at the documents in disbelief. But even that wasn't the worst of it, Henry said. He pulled out the final stack of papers, email printouts with Freeman Logistics headers. These are emails between Tyler Stephanie and Scott Whitman. They detail a conspiracy to have James declared incompetent and institutionalized in a memory care facility against his will. He began reading excerpts aloud, his voice steady but filled with quiet outrage. Tyler to Stephanie, October 2nd. Dad's house recent appraisal $450,000. Retirement accounts around $287,000. Total $737,000. If we move fast, we're looking at that much before any care costs. Stephanie to Tyler, October 4th. Memory care facilities, Evergreen charges $8,200 per month. I'm drafting the guardianship petition. Scott says we can file in 8 to 10 weeks. Tyler to Stephanie and Scott. October 6th, 10-step plan, document incidents of Dad's declining cognition. We create these. Get him to sign POA while confused. File emergency guardianship. Move him to memory care temporarily. Sell house immediately. Transfer retirement accounts. Nicole and I get married. Use funds for wedding and house. Keep Dad in facility long enough to avoid legal challenge. Split remaining assets. Henry paused. Let the words sink in. Tyler wrote, Dad will be safe in care. Win-win. The silence was absolute. Even the sound of breathing seemed too loud. Henry showed more emails, discussions of which doctor would write fraudulent cognitive decline reports, which lawyer would file the guardianship petition, which memory care facility had the most restrictive visitation policies. They planned to imprison James in a locked memory care unit, sell his house, drain his retirement accounts, and divide the money among themselves, all while James was fully competent and aware. He closed the folder. Tyler is currently serving 7 years in federal prison for fraud and conspiracy. Stephanie is serving 5 years probation. Scott Whitman has been disbarred. Nicole Harper fled to Arizona. Henry looked at Leonard, Kenneth, and Laura. But the 3 of you sat at that engagement party and watched Tyler humiliate James. Some of you nodded. None of you defended him. And when Tyler was arrested, when the full truth came out, none of you called James to apologize. None of you offered to repay the money he'd given you over the years. You stayed silent. I stood up slowly. Every eye turned to me. I don't need apologies, I said quietly. I don't need explanations or excuses. What I need is for all of you to understand something clearly. I looked at each of them, Leonard, Kenneth, Laura. I am no longer part of this family. Not because of Tyler, though what he did was unforgivable, but because the rest of you spent years taking everything I had to give and offering nothing in return. You let Tyler humiliate me. You stayed silent when I needed you. I picked up my coat. Helen knew this would happen. She knew that once the truth came out, I'd finally see clearly. And she was right. I walked to the door. Douglas stood and followed me. Behind us, Henry said quietly, "This is what Helen wanted. For James to finally be free." 1 year after Henry's dinner, I sat in my Pearl District office watching snow fall over Portland. March had come again, but this time it felt different. Lighter. Free. The office was larger now, 3 rooms instead of 2. A proper conference space. New filing cabinets organized by client, not by crisis. On the wall behind my desk hung a framed photograph of Helen from our 20th anniversary, her eyes bright with joy. Beside it hung her final letter, the one I read every morning, "James, you deserve freedom. Don't look back. Live for yourself." My phone buzzed. A text from Douglas: "Dinner tonight, Henry's joining. Nathan wants to come too." I smiled and typed back, 7 o'clock. I'm buying. The past year had been a deliberate rebuilding, not of what I'd lost, but of something entirely new. Freeman Logistics had offered me an equity stake 6 months after Tyler's sentencing, 20% in a new consulting division, $320,000 annual salary plus performance bonuses. My role helped small businesses restructure and stabilize the way I'd helped Freeman in 2009. I'd accepted. Not just for the money, though financial stability mattered after Tyler had drained $21,000 from my retirement. I'd accepted because it felt right working with Douglas, building something based on integrity rather than obligation. The clients came steadily. Small logistics companies drowning in debt. Family-owned warehouses with accumulated expenses they didn't understand. Regional distributors whose founders had died, leaving children too proud to ask for help. I did for them what I'd done for Freeman. Analyzed expenses, negotiated with creditors, found the hidden recoverable costs, duplicate licenses, auto-renewing contracts, insurance on equipment long sold. Most businesses survived. The ones run by people who lied to me, who saw employees as disposable, I walked away from. Life was too short to work with people who reminded me of Tyler. I'd cut contact with my children completely. All of them. Tyler was in federal prison serving year 2 of 7 at FCI Sheridan. He'd filed 2 appeals, both denied. Release in 2030, followed by 5 years probation and a restitution schedule of $35,000 per year for 10 years. I didn't think about his release. That was 5 years away. By then we'd be strangers. We already were. Stephanie was 3 years into 5-year probation, working at a call center for $14 an hour, forbidden from finance or elder care work. She'd been ordered to pay me $50,000 in restitution, $5,000 per year. The first payment arrived 6 months ago. I deposited it into a separate account. When it reached $50,000, I donated all to an elder abuse prevention fund. Neither Tyler nor Stephanie had attempted contact since sentencing. Leonard, Kenneth, and Laura had tried. Multiple times. Leonard sent a 4-page letter 2 months after Henry's dinner, full of explanations about circumstances beyond his control and never meaning to take advantage. He asked if we could start fresh. I'd returned it unopened with a note, "I don't need explanations. I'm done." Kenneth showed up at my office 3 months later, unannounced. Dad, can we talk? No. I want to make things right. Kenneth, please leave. You're really going to throw away your relationship with your son over money. That was when something broke inside me, not painfully, but cleanly like glass finally dropped after carrying it too long. It's not about money, I'd said quietly. It's about years of taking and giving nothing back. It's about sitting at Tyler's party, watching him call me a freeloader and saying nothing. It's about standing here uninvited, trying to make me feel guilty for having boundaries. So you're just cutting us all off? Yes, please leave. He'd called me cold, unforgiving, said I was becoming bitter. I'd held the door open until he left. He hadn't tried again. Laura sent flowers on my birthday, white roses, Helen's favorite, with a card. I'm sorry, Dad. I miss you. I love you. Please call me. I'd taken them to a hospice facility with a note in memory of Helen Caldwell. I didn't call Laura. Love without action was just words. By summer, the attempts stopped. My children had given up or moved on or accepted I meant what I said. Nicole Harper's story played out predictably. She'd remarried 6 months after Tyler's arrest, a 62-year-old widower from Scottsdale worth $3 million. The marriage lasted 4 months before his daughter discovered Nicole's pattern and her father filed for divorce. Last anyone heard, she was in San Diego working as a life coach for wealthy retirees. The pattern continuing. Some people never changed. I donated the $95,000 in restitution from Tyler money stolen from Helen's estate to the Oregon Elder Abuse Prevention Fund in Helen's name. The fund wrote that it would fund legal advocacy for seniors facing exploitation and predatory guardianship schemes. Helen would have liked that. My new life had rhythm. Morning coffee at 6, client work until 5. No exceptions. Evenings were mine, dinner with Douglas, calls with Henry, drinks with Nathan and his wife Sarah, or quiet hours at Powell's Books, buying novels I'd never had time to read. No family dinners, no obligatory holidays, no calls starting with "I need a favor," just honesty, respect, and friendships that didn't keep score. Douglas stopped by most Tuesdays. We'd discuss Freeman business, or just talk about his father, about Helen, about the weight that lifts when you stop trying to fix people who don't want fixing. My father left me a note, Douglas told me once. It said, "Watch James Caldwell. He proves character isn't about words. It's about what you do when no one's watching, when there's no reward, when helping costs everything and gains nothing." Henry called every Sunday at 9. Sometimes with legal questions, sometimes just to talk. He'd known Helen for decades. She knew what Tyler was for 2 years before she died, he'd told me. She documented everything, but she knew you needed to see it yourself. That's a kind of love most people never experience. Nathan and I met monthly for lunch, talking about forensic accounting and the psychology of fraud. "You helped me see my work differently," he'd said. "It's not just catching criminals. It's protecting people who deserve better." My phone buzzed again. Nearly 7 o'clock. I closed my laptop, grabbed my coat, and reached for my keys. As I touched the doorknob, my phone rang. Oregon State Penitentiary. Tyler. I stared at the screen. Once, twice, 3 rings. A year ago I might have answered. Might have let guilt pull me back. Not anymore. I pressed decline, then opened my contacts and blocked Tyler's number permanently. Then Stephanie's, then Leonard's, Kenneth's, and Laura's. 43 years of obligation deleted in under a minute. I walked out into the cold March evening. The restaurant was warm, full of garlic and bread. Douglas sat at our usual table. Henry arrived next, then Nathan with his wife Sarah. "Closed the biggest case of my career today," Nathan announced, setting down wine. "Thanks to techniques I learned on Tyler's case." We ordered food, talked about work, about Sarah's nonprofit job, about Henry's grandson starting college. Douglas shared a story about his father. Henry remembered Helen organizing a charity auction that raised twice the expected amount. The conversation flowed easily, comfortable rhythm from people who genuinely enjoyed each other. My phone buzzed mid-dinner. Unknown number. Tyler calling from a different line. Or Stephanie, or Leonard trying again. I powered the phone off completely. Douglas noticed. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said, and I meant it. We finished dinner. Said goodbyes at 9. Douglas clasped my shoulder. "Same time next week. Same time." I drove home through snow-covered streets to my small Pearl District apartment. No family photos on the walls. Just Helen's anniversary picture, her letter, and photos of Douglas, Henry, Nathan, and me at dinners over the past year. People who'd earned their place. I made tea and sat by the window watching city lights blur through snow. My phone, powered back on, showed 3 missed calls. All unknown numbers, no voicemails. I deleted the call log. Tyler would try again. Maybe Stephanie, Leonard, Kenneth, or Laura would find new numbers, new reasons why I should forgive them. It didn't matter. I was done looking back. Helen's letter sat beside me. I picked it up, read it one more time. Be free. I was. Looking back at everything I can see now, what I couldn't see for 43 years, enabling isn't love. Sacrifice without boundaries isn't virtue. It's self-destruction. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone who sees themselves in my story, it's this: don't be like I was. Don't spend decades pouring yourself into people who only take. Don't mistake obligation for love. Don't wait until someone tries to destroy you to finally see who they really are. God gave us discernment for a reason. Helen understood this. She saw what Tyler was long before I did. She knew that sometimes the most loving thing is stepping back and letting people face consequences. The Bible says, honor your parents, yes, but nowhere does it say children have the right to destroy them. I spent years believing family meant enduring anything, forgiving everything, sacrificing without limits. But God also gave us wisdom to recognize when someone exploits grace rather than receives it. There's a difference between helping genuine need and enabling someone who sees your generosity as weakness. The hardest lesson: you cannot save people determined to destroy themselves and you. Tyler made his choices. So did Stephanie, Leonard, Kenneth, and Laura. I didn't cause their failures. I couldn't fix their character. And by God's grace, I finally found strength to walk away. Helen's final gift was permission to choose freedom over obligation. She knew sometimes love means letting go, letting people face truth without your intervention, letting God work in ways your presence prevented. I'm 69. I've lost most of my family, but I've gained something more valuable: peace, integrity, freedom. God doesn't call us to be doormats. He calls us to be wise. Thank you for journeying with me to the end. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family? If this resonated, pass it along to someone who needs to hear it. Please note, this story includes dramatized elements for reflection and learning. If it doesn't serve you, I respect your choice to seek content that does.